Good evening. Hi, tonight, June 10th, Thursday evening, June 10th, 2021. This is a meeting of the Concord Historical Commission, which I, Melissa Saalfield, am calling to order. I would like to do a roll call of the members present. So I'm just going to call your name. If you would state your name, and then Tom.
Present. Tom Beardsley.
Mike Capizzi.
Michael Capizzi present.
Rebecca Lematry.
Rebecca Lematry present.
And then would like to welcome our guests. And the first item on the agenda actually is with our guest, Patricia Ruze, Dr. Ruze, who has a project about the Concord Prison Cemetery that she would like to present to us. So welcome, Patricia. It's your airplane.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Do I have all of my technical stuff here correct? All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for the opportunity to talk to you briefly. I promise I won't go on and I won't spend too much of your time, but I think that there's a very interesting project that I hope you will agree would be something that Concord and other local residents would appreciate. I think many of you are already quite familiar with a prisoner cemetery, which is adjacent to the grounds of MCI Concord, which is the old Concord Reformatory. Are people familiar with that cemetery? It's a very historic spot, which was basically started in 1878, and it is the site where 121 prisoners were buried, most back in the late 1800s. And these are prisoners who were incarcerated at Concord for the most part. Some of them were from other areas, like there was a Plymouth hospital, which also back in the day put some patients there. But for the most part, they are bodies of prisoners whose families never came to pick them up. And so what you see if you go to that cemetery, which is just a stone's throw away from the MCI Concord parking lot, is small granite headstones which are in the ground that have a number. And the bodies are basically just they say number 14, number 32, number 121. Apparently because the families were ashamed to have their names listed, to know that there was a family member who was incarcerated. So anyway, this is a historic site, and I very much enjoy going and looking at that cemetery, and I think it's just a really vivid representation about prisoner life and how we recognize prisoners in death as well as in life. The reason why I'm talking about this today is because the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail has now in the throes of completion, I would say, of their section, which connects the Concord section of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail with the Acton section. And any of you who've been driving down Route 2, just west of the Rotary, are noticing that huge overpass, which is being built to connect these two sections of the trail. So as it turns out, the new section of the trail immediately abuts this prison cemetery. So soon, I think, in the next 6 months or a year, we are going to have many residents passing by this very special, very historic cemetery as they go on their bicycles or with baby carriages or walking right behind that cemetery. Currently, the cemetery is on the grounds owned by Department of Corrections, and it is, it's prison property, so it's, we're very protective at the prison for security reasons about maintaining control of prison property and keeping the public away from grounds where there might be inmate workers. So there's some maybe potential complications with communicating with Department of Corrections about security. Um, Officially, that site has been off limits to the public. It is maintained for many years by current inmates who clean the place up and mow the lawn and take care of it. But I think that because the rail trail is going right next to it, certainly curious rail trail users will explore that area. I mean, it's a beautiful cemetery. Heather, I actually tried to send you some pictures to show for this, but I foolishly uploaded them and then I went swimming and didn't see that they were too large. I should have sent them one by one. But in any case, what I am looking for, I'm quite interested in trying to facilitate access to what I feel is an important landmark in our community to the public. And I've communicated with the board of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, particularly Mr. Fallander. I think maybe you guys are familiar with him. But he's very supportive. He and I went for a little walk and stroll and looked at the gravesite. And he encouraged me to reach out to Concord Prison Outreach, which is another community group that you may be familiar with. And I've spoken with Mr. Sam Williams, who is the new executive director of Concord Prison Outreach, and he's also very excited about supporting this project. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for support from your organization, and I'm also looking to see whether or not folks like you who've been involved in community government have any suggestions or ideas about how I could possibly move this kind of project forward. I'm not looking for money. It would be a very inexpensive project. All I want to do is pave and access, which hopefully would be handicapped accessible, going just, it's like maybe 30 feet off the trail up to where the cemetery begins. And then I would also like to set up an informational kiosk giving some history about the cemetery and hopefully some information about Concord and Massachusetts prisons, which is a topic dear to my heart. Oh, Heather, I'm so happy to see you have a baby. Anyway, so I guess that's pretty much what I wanted to share. I'm happy to see if I can clarify myself any better with answering any questions.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very
I
well.
lost track of. Thank you very much. I will just start. I do have a lot of questions, actually. You say you don't asking for money, but this would cost money to do. Is this something that the state would provide funds for?
Well, I talked to the folks at the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, and I think that they would help me to raise money. I don't think we're talking about a lot of money. Maybe, I don't know, what would it cost? $5,000?
Well, I mean, you design services and actually the implementation. I mean, one thought comes to mind. Well, first of all, everybody needs to weigh in, but it is an historic feature of Concord. And I know, although it's on land that's owned by the state, that could pose a real issue. I'd defer to Heather to help on that. Those community preservation funds, it does award money for historic preservation issues. But this being on state land, I'm a little unsure how you would proceed. If we are the people, other than from the Historical Commission, maybe we write a letter of support if that's the judgment of the rest of the commission. I don't know the answer to that. Heather, is there a issue with ownership on that land?
So we have funded, the CPC has funded projects on state land before, including the fountain at the prison.
Okay, okay.
So that's not an issue. But they would definitely probably need to be at least like an applicant or a co-applicant because it is on their property.
The other thing that comes to mind, and this may be totally wacky, but have you talked to the folks of the cemetery committee?
You know, I don't even know that there is a cemetery committee, but I'm happy to. You know what? I'm a doctor and I work at the prison, and I really, you know, I'm just here because it's something that I feel passionate about, and I do feel like our communities would benefit from understanding a little bit more about what goes on. And you know, we all live in this Route 2 corridor, which is full of prisons.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, so I just feel like it would be so nice for for our communities to be a little bit more knowledgeable about living and working in prison. So anyway, so no, I don't know anything about
Okay.
the cemetery commission. I'd be happy to have a contact there, or I could just probably Google them.
Well, it's
The Concord Cemetery
Cemetery
Commission.
committee. It's, I mean, you just go to the Concord MA, the Concord Town Concord website, and under the different committees, there it's listed under cemetery committee. I don't know if that's would help you any, but I think there's some history. You know, some of the folks there are very knowledgeable about cemeteries. Certainly, might be somewhat helpful. But I'd like to open up to the rest of you, Tom, Michael, Rebecca. Your thoughts, questions for Dr. Ruze?
Yeah, hi, Patricia. Tom Beardsley. It's interesting. The cemetery committee meet the first Wednesday in the month at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and the public can join it live by Zoom. But I'm just wondering, Melissa, whether that would be any funds, whether that's just state. I mean, just with the town of Concord, rather than, wouldn't Patricia be better looking at maybe the Department of Corrections, something to see if there's any monies available for that? I just think it's a superb idea, Patricia, by the way. I found it very interesting reading the attachment that you sent, that little pot of history. I've walked down there so many times and never seen it. So I'm going to go this week and take a good look at it. Just a quick question. When you say an informational kiosk, is that somewhere that's kind of enclosed where you'd walk into?
You know, I don't really know what the technical term is for this. I tried to look it up. That's what
Yeah.
they call it on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So if you've been on the rail trail, which I have many, many times with my 95-year-old mother, who's a Concord resident, all along the way, there are little historical
Plaques.
yes, they're plaques, and they're raised, and
Yeah.
they point out different historic places along the trail. They
Yeah.
also do a tremendous amount of stuff with different art exhibitions, and I think that it would be wonderful to have some kind of an art you know, when I actually first reached out to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail folks, I had some more grand ideas about artwork along the way as the trail goes behind the prison, you know,
Yeah.
because you're right there behind there. But anyway, he convinced me to try to make this project a little smaller. But anyway, yeah, I think so that's a kiosk. What I'm calling a kiosk.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a plaque. And the one that I'm really thinking of, which is very, very interesting and very, very well done, is the pencil factory in Acton. That's, if you've not seen that, that is just a wonderful example of a really good interpretive historical panel. I think it's so professional and so well done. And I really think Concord prisons should have something similar to that. That's really well done, because I look at the other side of the coin and see historic plaques that aren't very well done. Yeah, I'd ask the state or the the prison, and see if there's been anything done in the Commonwealth in other cemeteries, prison cemeteries, over the last 150 years.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
a precedent for that.
Yeah. Tom, I think that my plan was to try to, I mean, I'm not really sure what my plan is, but what I've been working to is to try to see if there is interest in the community about doing something like this. And I thought if I could get the support from a couple different organizations,
Yeah.
I would just cold call the commissioner, who I do not know. I did work as the medical director at the Concord prison for 9 years. But these people change all the time. The superintendent there is completely not interested in this. And for the most part, I think Department of Corrections wants to do their job with their head down, quietly, with no press and no attention. And so I thought that I might be best off just going to the top and saying, there's some people interested in history in Concord, people interested in prison outreach. There's the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail organization, and we are going right next to your prison cemetery. People will undoubtedly get off the trail and go and look at it.
Yeah,
And
certainly.
that they don't leave beer cans and trash, but that they treat it as a historic place.
Yeah.
Just to weigh in, I'm sorry that you can't see me, Patricia. I've got two little kids running around my feet. But just to weigh in that two other organizations in town that might be interested are Umbrella Arts, which is the one that's partnered with the Bruce Freeman Trail to do some lovely public art displays in the past. And then also the library, because what jumps to my mind is just the history of people. And I don't know if there's any record at all of the names that go with those numbers. And if now, centuries out, it is appropriate to put names to numbers, that would be a fantastic research project that they may be interested in there.
Yeah, so that's really interesting that you bring that up, Rebecca. And by the way, your picture is beautiful. You look beautiful here.
Thank
We do. There is a map, and when I was working at the Concord prison, there was a woman in the superintendent's office who was sort of an amateur historian, and she has a list of the names of all of the people that are buried there. And I do think that is, publicly available. I know that there's also a veterans group that comes to put flags on those cemeteries every Memorial Day. So those people must also have a list of all the names of people there. And I agree. I think it would be a fabulous project for a volunteer to study some of the stories about the people that are buried there.
I'm so heartened to know that info exists, because I think that would just be beautiful, and also, as you say, help people treat it with respect, as opposed to just a sort of littering ground.
I'm going to
Yeah.
just excuse myself for 30 seconds so I can grab a pen, because I'm going the Emerson umbrella and the library.
Yeah, or we can also send you this. Michael, wait.
Patricia, maybe I can give you some insight into this, because I have some experience with a project on across the road that I worked on. Anyway, several years ago, the Silas Holden farmhouse had been rotting away there on the state police property, which is owned by the Department of Correction. And I had started a campaign calling everybody I knew in government that I worked with, as well as people I knew in Acton and Concord. The house was basically, because of the fact that there are prisoners that take care of the horse farm, as well as not only farming the land, but maintaining the horses. The Department of Correction has apprehension about anybody coming in contact with the prisoners for several reasons. At minimum, you need a security clearance to get on the property to deal with, which I had to do, as well as a contract as I brought on. But let me keep going with this. So I started calling everybody I knew, and finally, after 3.5 years, I just let it go. And one day I got a call from the governor's office notifying me that I personally, and I was no longer a developer or contractor, I received an earmark by the legislature through the governor's office to me to restore the exterior of the Silence Holden farmhouse. I have no idea who appropriated it. I could never find out. Anyway, I drove over to the state police property, and I went in and spoke to the state police, and they were certainly not very warm initially until I explained everything. And I told them I got this earmark to restore the exterior of the house. But before I accept the earmark, I need to understand the logistics here. Who's in control? What needs to be done? What information is needed? And I assumed that the house was in Concord. So I reached out to Heather, I believe, or someone at the planning department, and found through them that the house was in Acton. Anyway, working with those community groups in Acton, I determined within about 3 weeks what the process would be to get that restored. So let me keep going and then go back. Anyway, after sitting down with the DOC, as well as the state police, as well as the town, I got everybody in the room to agree what the process would be. If not, I wasn't going to take the earmark because I had 30 days from the point of the last meeting with them to take the money. And everybody signed off, and it worked out wonderfully. However, the one thing that I'm having an issue with, I mean, initially you said you weren't looking for any funds, but I don't really see a problem with you getting the funds to do it, because between the agencies as well as people in town, you can raise the money in 6 seconds. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
But what I do see as a problem is this. I don't understand how tourists can go on the property if in fact the inmates are maintaining it. If they continue to maintain it, I can assure you, I mean, even the contractor that I brought on the job to do the restoration at the Silent Holden farmhouse, I had to get a security clearance for him, as well as all the people that came on. And on a daily, and A, they had to dress in certain colors, and B, they had to check in and out with the state police on a daily basis for 2 reasons. One, not only they were dealing with inmates, but what happens, and this is not disparaging toward anybody, but what the state police told me was that sometimes people associated with the inmates that are living, as well as relatives, may go there and drop off some drugs.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they have the dogs come in the morning and then in the afternoon. So I'm not saying, oh my God, I don't see how this can get done. I just don't see how if they're maintaining it. So I think that the issue is logistically, where is it located, who's maintaining it, and how does that work with the tourists?
Yeah.
Having said that, they are very easy to work with. The DOC is, they have a chief architect that is a remarkable individual, has a great resume, and he knows how to get things done from them. I don't know if the state police are involved in any way. I don't know. I'm sure they're policing some way or another, but you may need to reach out to them. And secondly, or thirdly, or maybe fifthly, whatever, I do think that it's a wonderful idea. I just think that one needs to make sure that they are all in sync before one proceeds to the next level, because if not, it's just going to lead to a controversial thing, because it's a good idea that was initiated and then somehow or other someone put a stop to it.
Yeah.
And that's why, in fact, the house was rotting for 35 years, is because they basically didn't want anybody on the property. They didn't want anybody going on the property for several legitimate reasons. But as I said to them, and as I'm saying to you right now, the reason the cemetery was there and the reason that it still is there, there's a reason that it's there, just like the Silas Holden farmhouse was there and is still there. So there's a reason it was existing, and there's a reason it wasn't taken down. So ultimately, the merits of the cemetery as well as the farmhouse are going to overcome any apprehension by anybody and maybe work that out. So I'm happy to help you in any way, shape, or form, or I'm happy to mind my business, whatever you would like to do. Whatever you would
Yeah.
like to do. But I do know I put a lot of work into it, and the house got restored. And in fact, I recently raised the money to do all the windows and the doors and a little of the foundation, but I had to put that on hold for a little while. So anyway, I'll stop talking. But if I can help in any way, we're happy to do it.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
I have a question, Michael. Uh, who would you recommend that I reach out to at Department of Corrections?
Okay. So I have the file. I want to say his last name is Quick, but I'll get you the information, and I'll either send it to Heather to send to you, or I send it to you directly, whatever the procedure is. I will give you all the contact information. And I'm happy, if you would like me to drive over, I do see the state police once a week over there. I can stop by and ask them if in fact the sergeant that runs it is a good friend now, and find out if they're doing any policing over there and what it is, what the logistics are there. And I'm happy to help you and work with you if the planning department allows me that opportunity, because I do think that I could eliminate a whole bunch of issues for you and get you right to the right person to say yes, no, and how. And then you can proceed with how you want to do it if they're instinct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I have another thought in addition to his suggestions. Because it does go right along the rail trail, the town is developing signage and historical interpretation signage along there. I had actually invited the folks from the West Concord Task Force. I'm not sure if I'm saying the right names, but they have been looking into all of the interpreting the whole area, because as you may know, during this leading up to the Civil War, that was the site, that general area, of the largest military encampment since the Revolutionary War was there. And so they're looking into some kind of interpretation, like a kiosk, something like that, some interpretive text. And I know Marcia Rasmussen, who's oversees all this, right, Heather? She has developed signage along the trail that describes, this was a mill, this was a whatnot. So I think that it would be important to coordinate with the rail trail in the town if you do some kind of interpretive signage, so that it's consistent, the design look is consistent.
Right.
The other folks I think might be interesting, although I don't know, is the Concord Museum. I'm pretty sure that they have done a fair amount of research on into the cemetery itself, or certainly into the prison, the history of the prison. David Wood, who was their curator, might help with some of the interpretation, some of the backstory. The other thing that just sort of comes to mind, this is an historic cemetery. It is not active anymore. Am I to understand that they no longer bury prisoners there? So families, well, there's some other provision,
Yeah.
right? Because as Michael has a lot of good ideas about the state, it would just be nice that they all work together so that it's, the interpretive look is consistent with what's going on. And also what he suggests, if people are not allowed to visit it, for the reasons that Michael notes, that, prisoners are doing work there, then I think, we wouldn't want to call attention to the cemetery. We wouldn't want people to go in and walk around and vandalize it potentially. So I think that's kind of a threshold question that Mike raises that.
I just so you know, I apologize. I can get those answers in a day if you.
Well, but it's a very, so it could be a real problem.
But the one thing I'd like to mention, and I don't know if anybody mentioned it, Melissa, and you know this, the library has archives. There's a section in the basement, and I know I've been there a million times, but with regard to the Silas Holden farmhouse, they had inches of documents there. And I'm sure that they have a lot of information relating to, I know they have it as it relates to the farm, which the prison was part of at one time.
Yeah.
Before the prison was built. So I'm sure they have some information on the cemetery. So you may want, Melissa, you may know the name of the new
Well,
curator there.
Anka Voss is the new, she's
Curator.
curator of special collections.
Right.
So that's another area for research and pursuit. So back to, you said there are numbers on the plaques. Do you think they would be able to actually link that number to an individual?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I bet Michael's right. I bet that's in the library, public library, but it's certainly with folks who I knew who used to at least work at the Concord prison.
Mhm.
So
The
I think
person-
I
the
think that
person-
would be easy to find.
Yeah, the person is Jeffrey Quick. And I can get all the information to you. I will go over to the state police tomorrow and talk to them in the morning and see what their role is, if any, with the cemetery or the land near there. And then if Heather says okay, or the commission, I'm happy to send this information along to
Yeah.
you, help you in any way.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I would ask Michael is you would think that the Department of Corrections, or at least somebody maybe who you've been working with at the state police area there, is aware that the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is backed right up against that
Oh, yes.
cemetery, and that they are anticipating that there are people who are going to be getting off their bicycle and walking up there.
I-
And so you
I concur.
have a
And
plan.
I'm sure, and I have not any dialogue with them about the trail, but I'm sure that because the prisoners are there a lot on a daily basis with regard to the horses, and on a seasonal basis when it comes to the farm, there are many there, and so I don't know with regard to where the cemetery is, how and what is going on with the prisoners near there, but they can give you those answers very quickly.
Yeah, and I do know a little bit about that, just having worked there. There's actually very little contact that prisoners have with that area right there. And there are minimum security and pre-release inmates who are working at the Concord farm, who I believe are the ones who do the maintenance. Maybe they go and they cut the lawn there in the summer every 2 weeks or something like that.
By the way, just so we won't get this on the table, I know of many restaurants in Concord and Acton that have prisoners that work in the kitchens, as well as at Acton Toyota, I worked and we had prisoners there who were technicians, who they would take there in the morning, and then the van would pick them up at night. And these were, they were wonderful people.
Yeah.
Even the ones, wonderful people, hardworking, et cetera, who were looking, to get to the next stage of their life. So I don't want you to think that my comments are in any way evaluating or disparaging anybody. I just want you to understand the dynamics of it all. And I'm happy to give you that insight.
So are there other comments? I don't think we're coalescing into one endorsement or whatnot. I think it's your project is still a little unclear to me. I think that's, for me personally, I think, trying to figure out who has jurisdiction over this, who would provide funding. I mean, that's why I asked about the CPC, because it does provide funds for historic preservation. If it was deemed that this was eligible for that, I could see you could write a grant, but you still need to figure out what is exactly you want there. Is it a path? Is it interpretive text on a plaque of some sort? A key to the grave sites with the prisoners' names? And again, is the public allowed? Because if the State Department of Corrections says no, then it's kind of then all your interpretive text could be along the rail trail, say this is near the site of or something. But I think those are some basic, to me,
Yeah,
questions.
so maybe I could clarify. I mean, I think that what I would really like is access for the public to go and visit the cemetery in a respectful way. I would like to have some kind of access for anyone using the trail which could be sort of handicapped because you have people who have strollers and people who have wheelchairs.
Yep.
And I would like a plaque that explains the historical significance of the cemetery, including the names of the people buried there and some of their stories, if it's considered that that's appropriate. And I don't know if people, maybe Department of Corrections feels that they need to keep that information secret, something like that, or
Yeah.
there's security issues about it. But that's the vision that I have.
Heather, can I ask a question? Can she communicate with me or can I communicate with her?
Yes, because it's not like an application under our jurisdiction. So yes.
I will reach out to you tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you. 'Cause, yeah, I think speaking for myself, I just say I'm very interested in this. I think, it just seems only decent to properly interpret that cemetery for the people who are buried there and for their families. I realize it's historic, so perhaps no families are still alive that are associated with the grave, but even so, it's respect for those folks. I think I still have an issue with jurisdiction. I think that's a challenge. It's something I think you will figure out. I don't know whether, other than us making our own personal observations, recommendations, Heather, if there's anything more that we could do at this time.
I don't think at this time there is, unless
I personally don't feel prepared to write a letter of support because I'm really not sure who we would be writing it to. I think if we find out that, you really need the okay from the Department of Corrections, I think that our commission could discuss again and say, do we want to write a letter in support? Much like I'm gathering, well, I don't know whether the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Committee is going to do it, but that's something that we could do to help support your cause. But I think we need a few more questions answered. I just, again, for myself, I support what your endeavor is trying to achieve. Mike?
Yeah, yes. And I think by the way, you can get those answers in 1 or 2 days connecting with the right people. And I'm happy because I put so much time and effort into it. I'm happy to put you right with them and, and can have a conference call and get all your questions answered.
Okay.
Michael, would you like me to send Patricia your email?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. And Patricia, I'll send you some of the names of the people that I can think of that you might want to reach out to. I mean, people in the community, to the extent that it could help you.
Right.
And you can just say, I presented this before the Historical Commission, which verbally is interested in what I'm trying to do. I think that's fair, right? I don't want to put words into people's mouth.
But I do want to just caveat one thing, and this is your decision, Melissa and Heather. It's as the Historical Commission, it's wonderful to go and see something that we want to save and be proactive about it. So what I'm hearing is before the commission wants to be proactive about it, they want to make sure that this is something that's safe and something that is acceptable to the individuals, the entities that are running the system and understand the issues at hand so that everybody's safe and enjoying the site as opposed to any issue. Am I right?
Yes. Plus, who's got jurisdiction here? I think it's not us.
Yeah, right.
But we might be supportive.
Right.
I don't know. Susan, can I bug you, ask you as our select board representative?
Yeah, I don't think I could give any further advice from what you've given. Obviously, Michael has firsthand experience in this type of situation, and you've mentioned like David Wood and Anka Voss and other people in town that would be good references for historical information. So yeah, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Patricia. So I think several of us may reach out to you with some names of, to add more to your burden of work to do and research. But at any rate, I thank you very much for your concern and for your dedication. I think this is, it's a very important project. And, it's sad to, I drive by that and I've thought often, geez, it's so lonely. You see a cross, you can see a cross right from Route 2. Very sad. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to communicating further with some or all of you. And I'm going to sign out. I'm going to miss the rest of your meeting and have some dinner.
Oh, good. Well, bon appetit, as Julia would say.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thank
Look forward
you.
to being in touch.
Well, thank you. I am sort of sorry that I did ask the folks from this task force because they really are trying to work with the town to come up with a better understanding of actually what happened in all that area, in addition to the cemetery, the prison efforts, the Civil War encampment. Anyway, so moving on to number 2. This is just on the agenda, I'll just say as a reminder, because town meeting, we are, this will be on the warrant number 33, article number 33. We know that the select board, thank you, has proposed affirmative action on this. And I'm hoping it goes through without a blip or a peep. But if there's any other questions, otherwise we'll just move along to updates. And since I'm chair, I'll go first. I just want to say that I have been working on this oral history to revive the oral history program here for the town of Concord, working with the library, and it's been bumpy, but I think we've now discovered our line item in the budget. We do have $5,000. The first project that we are undertaking will be working with Anka Voss at the library, as well as Carleen Hempel, who is I think I mentioned last time, she's a professor of journalism at Northeastern, lives in West Concord, and she will be actually doing the interviews of the 14 individuals identified at Emerson Hospital. And then her audio interviews will be uploaded to a server there at the library, and then they will be transcribed. The other thing, I just want to mention that I had asked about the historic copies and reached out to Rebecca to ask if she would help just get started with a basic mailing list identifying all the different historic properties and their directors, historic architects, archaeologists, to try and come up with a list of folks to invite to these coffees. Tom, you might be helpful as well. I think, one of our goals is to really elevate and improve the understanding amongst the community of historic preservation issues. And these coffees, I think, could be helpful. I certainly think they've been helpful for the conservation efforts here in town. Conservation coffees have been very popular. They, during COVID, I'm not sure what's been happening, but pre-COVID, they were monthly gatherings, and I think a lot of good conversation followed from that, and then subsequent action. So I'm hoping that can be of our historic coffees.
And just as a quick follow-up, I did yesterday just begin, sort of a little spreadsheet by category. So please, if you have any names that should be on there, send them my way, and then I'll fill in the rest.
Yeah, thank you. And then, thank you. And then Heather was going to identify a place where we maybe 141 Kais Road, the big hearing room or something where we would gather. I'm hoping to start these in October. And just see how it goes, I do think there's fair interest in this concept. Hi, Susan, yes?
Hi, yeah, my question was, are you looking for people to present information at these, or just you're looking for people who are interested to attend?
Just to start, I thought I would host the first one and just say, we are trying to increase awareness in Concord of preservation issues. From stone walls, cemeteries, as part of the, ultimately, we will, want to upgrade the Historic Resources Master Plan. I think eventually we might actually have people to present. I think the conservation coffees they have over time, I don't see it as heavy lifting for a lot of people, but it is an opportunity to get together and talk about these things. Because right now I feel like we are all in our little silo, and I think it could be helpful.
Yep.
So that's my thought.
Thank you. I think the conservation coffee is a good reference because I think they're taking a hiatus for the summer, but they were meeting and it's just so interesting because there are 40, 45 people there and there are people interested in the birds, the rivers, the forestry, and it's a great combination of information and you come away having learned a lot in an hour. So.
Well, good, great. Because the other thing is, we have this demolition bylaw. Perhaps we could steer a homeowner before it ever even comes to a hearing. Maybe have a discussion about other ways they could renovate their home without tearing it. I don't know exactly what this will produce. It just seems to me it's a good idea to talk. Okay, so I'm asking for other updates from anyone else. Has any other updates? Otherwise, we would move on to observer comments. Anyone?
I was unable to get to the last one. Unfortunately, the 4 p.m. start is a little difficult. It's easy for me to attend in the evening, Melissa, at 7.
I know, I'm kind of curious how the cemetery committee got away with having their meetings at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, people are working, aren't they? So it's strange.
Take the afternoon off. Hi, boss.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rebecca, you have the your economic vitality, Conquer Together. Have anything to report about that?
I do. I'm in the same position. It's a 4 o'clock meeting, so I had to rely on just the minutes that they posted. I'm about a month behind. But one thing I thought was interesting is I guess Concord and Lexington got a joint grant through the Mass, what was it? The Mass Travel
Tourism.
And it's celebrating the colonial past under the title 2 Towns, 1 Story. The funds all have to be used this season, and I guess they're targeting sort of 90% of an advertising and tourism campaign throughout New England. But I just thought that was interesting because that should hopefully bring in people who are interested in the historic past of this town. And let's see, anything else that was in their minutes? I think that was about it from 2 months ago, so.
Okay. I know Alan's not here, Nancy's not here. I sort of pay attention to the planning board, which, they spend less time, a lot of reviewing the articles that they are particularly interested in. One of which I think kind of relates to what you just talked about was the open air seating for restaurants, which I think was very popular. I think, they're hoping to continue that. Continued hearing about the Concord Children's Center expansion and, green zoning, tree work, anyway, stuff that's just ongoing. I think the other thing though that they have reminded folks is the discussion, the forum that will be held on June 22nd, again about the Thoreau Business District, redevelopment of that, which is pretty ambitious and I think will really change that area a lot, but I know that they're looking for public input and have for some time. So I just would encourage you to, I presume that's a Zoom session. Any other business public comments to bring to the meeting? Michael, Tom?
No.
Very quiet. Well, I do hope you're all coming to the town meeting and I hope there's dead silence when Article 33 is presented.
Hope so. We have minutes to do.
I know, I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
Well, before the minutes, I wanted to ask, the next meeting would be July 8th. would that be in person? Or because the town, my understanding, the town is opening up June 14?
Right, so the law that's allowing us to meet virtually, and meet our quorum requirements virtually, ends on June 15th. There is a bill going through the legislature to extend that to September. And I believe that was supposed to be taken up today, or is being taken up today. So it's unsure right now. As of right now, it would be an in-person meeting, because as of June 15th, we can't meet virtually anymore. Unless it gets extended, then we can choose whether we meet in person or we continue virtual meetings through September.
Okay. So more on that, probably we'll get through an email. So then as Heather said, we do have minutes from the May 27 meeting to present. Has anyone any corrections, changes that they'd like to propose for the minutes?
Heather, I always find one tiny thing for you. On page 2, just under minutes, the second sentence, I think, should start Mr. Gross, not just Gross, move to approve.
Fast typing.
Thank you.
Any other changes anyone has to suggest? Could I have someone propose that we approve the minutes?
I propose we approve the minutes.
Second?
I second that motion.
Okay, so all in favor, you do need to state your name and say your vote. Tom,
Tom Beardsley, aye.
Mike,
Michael Capizzi, aye.
Rebecca,
Rebecca Lemaitre, aye.
Melissa Saalfield, aye. So the minutes for May 27th have been approved. The next meeting, as I said, is July 8th, and you will hear via email, probably from Heather, whether or not we would meet at Kaiser Road or Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, we can have this discussion via email. Does anyone have a preference how we move forward if we are allowed to continue virtual through September? Is that something people want to continue doing, as you know, people are out of town throughout the summer? And
Well, there is a problem, Heather. If we go and meet in person, we're not going to be able to see Charlotte anymore.
Oh, no, we get the big Charlotte.
How do we work that? How do we work that out? If you promise to bring it to the meeting,
Say hi.
if you promise to bring it to the meetings, then we'll go.
I may have to if her dad gets stuck at work. Ah, you say hi?
Charlotte, what have you done to your mouth?
You say hi?
Got eyes for dad.
You say hi?
Okay,
Oh,
okay. Are we still being recorded?
Yes.
No, I think we've conducted the minutes. I think I declare the meeting closed. Probably time for Charlotte to go to bed,
Yes.
right? So we will see you all maybe at town meeting, if not July 8th. Well, wait a minute, Mike derailed me. So what do people think? Excuse me, before we end this, would you prefer to meet in person, or do you want to continue with Zoom?
If you want to think about it, you can also email me.
I think my personal just feeling, I'd like to meet in person, but there's so many side issues, isn't there, and complexities.
Okay, well, I prefer in person. It feels, I will never get used to Zoom, even though.
Oh, no. I mean,
So, well, okay, so, I guess we'll just send, our preferences back to you, Heather, via email.
Yeah, I'll keep everyone updated if it passes, and we can figure it out from there.
I just want to know, does Heather Charlotte get to participate in the HDC meetings?
She does make an appearance sometimes.
Okay, thank you all. So I declare the meeting adjourned.
All right.
Thanks very much.
thanks.
Everyone,
Good
Sunday.
Hi, good night, little Charlotte.
night. Bye.
Good night.